Welcome into I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. We're back for a college football recap episode, week 8 that we'll get into it. I got some thoughts on it, but there was some good stuff that happened across the slate, Tyson. We're starting to see a little bit more of the college football playoff picture solidify. Still have a little bit of time for the first rankings come out, but I think we're starting to see a pathway for certain teams into the big dance.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long time that college football has felt really fun at this time of year. Normally, it's just like, okay, we've got the 6 that can make the 14 playoff. Or going back to when we were younger, it was like we got the 5 that are going to compete for the BCS National Championship at the end of the season. This is wide open. I mean, this is since 2007 probably, as far as like I don't know who's winning this national championship at all.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's going to be great down the stretch. But Tyson, we got a lot to get into today, and so let's start it off with our I Told You So's.
I told you so.
Folks, you know this is coming. Brian Kelly is just one of the best coaches in the country, and I know you don't like him because he's mean, and he yells, and he's an ass, and I'm sorry. Do you want your college football teams to be good? Do you want to win? Do you want to overachieve on expectations? Because if you do, then Brian Kelly's your guy. But if you want, nice coach, and he's funny, and we like him, and he's funny in the media, then you can take those guys. But then you're going to be disappointed, and then you're not going to compete for national championships, and then you're not going to be able to compete at a high level like Brian Kelly's teams do. And I know the whole thing, well, it's Notre Dame teams, this and that. You think anybody could have done as good as what he did at Notre Dame with those academic restrictions, with the lack of athletes he had compared to the elite level? Okay, if that's your prerogative. Then he comes to LSU, first year with Tyson knows the details. He's an LSU guy. Not many scholarships as he should have had in the SEC. Beats Alabama, like unbelievable. And now once again, USC beats him, and everybody's dancing on his grave. Aha, Brian Kelly sucks, yeah. And all of a sudden they're 6-1. And now they're on track to compete for an SEC championship. It's just, you can hate him all you want. You got to admit, he's a damn good football coach.
Yeah, it's year 3 where he's lost the first game of the season, and there's been wild overreactions, and he's going to cash his 3rd win total over in a row here to start his career at LSU. That certainly felt like a Les Miles, Ed Ogeron, whoever else. That's an Arkansas game. Our Arkansas team that beats LSU in seasons like this. And so for them to win, and not just win, kind of handle business, was pretty sweet. But my I told you so is Georgia Bulldogs can play a little football, and Kirby Smart can get these guys riled up. You weren't alone in this, Brad, but we went mano-a-mano last week on our pick show. But the reason I highlight that is it was over half the country was with you on Texas to win this game. It was massive. Everybody thought this is the arrival of Texas, and Georgia's done because they lost to Alabama, and now Alabama stinks. Sometimes weird stuff happens in college football. Georgia figured out Alabama in the second half of that football game, and they went into Austin and played Texas, and they put their foot just in Texas's behind. Like what I wrote in my notes when I was watching the game, this was a layup. Over half the country decided to abandon what we know to be true, what we've seen with our own eyes for years. For Quinn Ewers, that's for Steve Sarkisian, that was who everybody was sold on. I've seen those guys lose to Washington. I've seen those guys lose to teams that didn't have half the physicality. This wasn't even like 30-15 is being respectful to that Texas offense. Herbie and in the booth, they were trying to make it seem like this was going to be a game at any point. And if Texas scores here, then all of a sudden, and Georgia just ran the football down their throats. Carson Beck looked like shit. He looked horrible. It didn't matter a lick. That Georgia defense was just ate Texas alive. That Texas defense that we've heard quite a bit about got pushed all over the field for most of the game. I know, that this isn't officially their welcome to the SEC moment, but that sure did feel like, hey, this has been ours for a long time. It's going to continue to be ours. Get in line. And I'd like, these are the games Sark loses. Is Texas going to win a national championship? Maybe. Like, this might be a huge bounce back game for them or a look in the mirror kind of moment. But Georgia just reminded the entire country, like, we lost the game. It happens to everybody else. But when we do it, we slide that we suck now. That's crazy.
And I'll give my thoughts on this later in another segment. But, yeah, Tyson laid it out well. And I'll add to that in my thoughts. But Tyson, next one here. Normally we put our hands up and we're embarrassed, but I got to say, I'm kind of looking forward to this one.
I've made a huge mistake. Hand up.
And Colorado, boy, we buried them early in the season. And I'm happy that I'm wrong here. Now, the difference between us here at I Said What I Said and the other idiots and talking heads in the media is that we can come on here, and that's why we do these segments. This is why we do hand up. It's because when we have strong opinions and we're wrong, we'll say we're wrong. And not a lot of people do. People are still digging their heels in about Colorado. Folks, this is a good football team. Man, I mean, Shedeur Sanders, he holds on to the football. He gets sacked. This offensive line isn't very good, but this is way better in the trenches than they've been last year. This defense all of a sudden is fast and physical. I mean, last year, it was a joke. Truly, like it was paper thin. It was just like, let's just get our offense out there. It looked like, honestly, somebody playing like a video game, right? Like you just don't care about it. I just want to get my quarterback stats. And it was like, is Prime really serious about that, about coaching this football team? And that's kind of what we thought early in the season, that we kind of ripped them. All of a sudden, this is a focused, quiet team. Deion Sanders has done a hell of a job here. Pat Shurmur, this offense actually has creativity. It's not just a Travis Hunter show because he's been out on the offensive side the past couple games in terms of coming in and out with injuries. They're running the football. This is a real football team, guys. I got to say, I'm happy I'm wrong because I like Deion Sanders. I know he can rub people the wrong way. He's cocky. He's brash. Does anybody know who Deion Sanders was when he was playing football? Like, you're not going to change him because he's getting into coaching. Like, you don't think Bill Belichick and Nick Saban have a little bit of cockiness to him? Kirby Smart, did you hear what he said after the game? That's just how it goes. But because he's Deion Sanders, and I got to say it, and I normally don't like bringing it up, because he's black and he's acting that way, people are like, oh, I just don't like this. I'm getting rubbed the wrong way. Sure, okay, that's your thing. But you also got to admit, this Colorado team is good, and Deion Sanders has done a hell of a job as a head coach this season. Tyson, Colorado can win the Big 12, especially if they play like that on the road like they did when they stomped out Arizona.
Yeah, we have our own thoughts on Arizona, but I was dead wrong on Colorado too. I'm sitting here, I'm burying them. I'm saying that I don't know what Shedeur's like in the locker room, but going to the press conference and throwing your offensive line under the bus isn't a good look for somebody that should go top 5 or top 10 in the draft. And then it just went real quiet, and they beat up Colorado State. And then they sneak by Baylor, and they're in a game that we're kind of like, hey, what the heck? That's college football. That's what happens. They stomp UCF. KJ Jefferson loses his job a couple weeks later. They could have beat a Kansas State. That's the one that's really kind of going to stick in your craw if you're a Colorado fan, because that really would be, hey, this team can win the Big 12 right now. And then they handle business against Arizona. Brad, the rest of the schedule is kind of a cakewalk. You catch Cincinnati, and then you Texas Tech, Utah team who looks dead, Kansas on the road. Kansas doesn't have a home stadium. And then Oklahoma State, who figured it out for 58 minutes against BYU and then got the wind knocked out of their sails. That's season defining in some of these cases. They might be rolled over by the end of the season. Colorado looks really good. And I'm stupid for that too. But I'm going to go a little bit of a different route here for my hand up. We didn't think Maryland was going to win very many football games before the season started. We thought, well, the offense can be fun, but the defense probably isn't going to be very good. And I'm not so sold on Mike Locksley. And, it'd be awesome if he was good. He just put on a masterclass, I thought, at least on game management, how to play situational and winning game football. They beat USC. Huge win. It's not the same USC team that you can really say is program defining, but as far as David versus Goliath scenarios, that's up there, man. I mean, that was absolutely fantastic. I think that him going for 2 with 10 minutes left in the game, at the time, I'm like, this has the potential to be a disaster. You could lose this football game because of this decision. That's not what happens. They get the 2-point conversion. They score a touchdown with under a minute left, and now all they got to do is make an extra point to win the football game. They made Miller Moss look silly. They made this USC offense look bad. Lincoln Riley loses again. He's worse than Billy Napier now over X amount of games, whatever it is. I mean, it's true. The guy can't win football games right now. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Mike Locksley, because that's in a game, college football as a whole, where we see so many poor coaching decisions just over and over and over again, week after week, for him to for him to outcoach somebody who the national media has a lot of respect for. Give him his flowers too. Don't just say USC upset. Is it an upset?
Well, technically, right? Because I think it was 8.5 points
On the
USC
spread,
was favored
yes.
by. Yeah.
Yes.
But, I think if you're Mike Locksley, yeah, you can coach. But you can't coach on these Friday games anymore. You tell your athletic director never to schedule a Friday game for Maryland because it never works out well. Tyson, this was impressive coming off their absolute ass kicking against Northwestern at home when they were coming off a bye.
Could they be 6-1 if they only played Saturdays?
Exactly. If you're the AD, you should get canned if you don't figure this out. I can tell you right here, bring me in, consult. Give me $1 million like you do with those other trash consulting firms. I'll tell you that right now. But Tyson, let's get into one of our favorite segments of the week and who we call out, and I think it'll be a good one.
Donkey! Donkey of the day.
And it's going to be me. My donkey of the day is me this week because I could have done so much with my Saturday. Could have gone outside. I could have golfed. I could have got my swing good. I gave up a little bit on golf. I'm frustrated, and I think I worked through some mental stuff, Tyson. So I'm ready to get back in the saddle. And Saturday could have been it, but I said no. This is college football. We have this show that we do, and we got to come on here and pay attention to everything. That was the worst week in the college football, or maybe the most frustrating weekend. Tennessee and Alabama might have been the worst game of football ever played, considering the expectations going into that. Awful offense, awful coaching, awful execution, sloppy play. You go across the board. Quarterbacks sucked all weekend. The referees were terrible. It made it unwatchable. The sloppiness, the special teams were atrocious. The tackling was bad. I'm sitting there, and I got my setup. Every single game that I was watching was horrible. I was texting you. I was losing my mind. I was pacing around my house. I can't watch this anymore. But I tortured myself. Why did I do it? I don't know. I'm an idiot. I'm the donkey of the day. That was me on Saturday.
I loved it. That was one of my favorite college football weekends in a long time. It was disgusting, and it was pure college football. Nobody's good. That's what I'm saying. So if you're like Brad, sorry that you had to sit through that, but go work on your swing too. But my donkey of the day, dude, I texted you early on Saturday and said, don't let me forget about the Oklahoma Sooners. Don't let me forget about Brent Venables because this is despicable. This is disgusting. Dude, what are you doing? Coming off a huge loss in a massive rivalry game where you hold the lead for an entire quarter, right, against Texas. You're up 3-0, then you get the doors blown off you, and then you're back at home against a frisky South Carolina team, but a game that you have to have. And, Brad, why do they have to have it? Because Oklahoma's sitting here right now with 4 wins. Here is the rest of their schedule this season. Ole Miss, Maine. We can count that one. They're going to win the Maine game. And then it's Bama, Mizzou, LSU. They have to get 2 out of that Ole Miss, Bama, Mizzou, LSU stretch to even go bowling. This has been a colossal failure for Brent Venables since he's taken over Oklahoma. We thought at the end of last season they turned things around and this is going to be okay. They lose Dylan Gabriel, but they got Jackson Arnold. Everything's going to be fine. This is disgusting. This offense can't move the ball. They're giving South Carolina essentially 23 points to start the game, starting in a hole at home in a game that you have to have. It was as poor of coaching as anybody else in the country this week. His leash has been really long. It's been documented, right? Oklahoma doesn't have much interest in moving on from him. That thing tightened up quick because this is bad.
And we'll talk about something that resulted as a loss there coming up later in another segment. But we both called it. We were like, ooh, that's how you look in the Big 12 last year. You get 10 wins, but not great. Now you go to the SEC. Tyson, is an easy underplay for us, and then we're going to hit that. That's for sure. Let's get into the upset of the week. Tyson already touched on it, but I want to share my piece.
Upset of the week.
And really, Georgia stomping Texas is the headliner because, Texas is the number 1 team. This was an opportunity for them to make a statement as an SEC team. Biggest game in Austin, game days there. And Scotty Scheffler's making funny jokes about the Louisville police. And it was funny on game day. And we're all setting up for, Texas. They're announcing ourselves and Texas is back. And Tyson, I thought you laid it out perfectly. What was I thinking? I said on our pick show, I know I'm stepping into it. Like, this feels like I'm just wrong. And boy, was I wrong because Texas couldn't run the ball. They were outclassed in the trenches. Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck gave him a lifeline because he was awful. And Quinn Ewers like, no, hold my beer. It was bad, dude. Yeah, Texas doesn't mean Texas sucks. It doesn't mean Texas can't play. But if you want to talk about like elite levels of programs right now, I think Georgia's still at the top of the list. Ohio State, I know they lost to Oregon, but both those teams are up there. I'll throw Penn State based on what I've seen so far this year up there as well. I know people don't like to give them their flowers, but you know what? I should have been a little bit more not predictable or predictive, or at least had a little more foresight when it came to this. Georgia dominates stagnant quarterbacks, and Quinn Ewers is stagnant. I don't know. So, Jalen Milroe actually shred up this Georgia defense. If you can move as a quarterback, you're going to have a chance. That was not the case here for Quinn Ewers and Georgia that's teed off on him. That was ugly. So that's something to note, I think, going forward, Tyson. Can Georgia figure it out against the mobile quarterback? Because when we get into the playoffs, sure, let's say they win the SEC and they get a bye, and then you kind of trim that thing down, the 12-teamer, into a little bit more manageable. But if they lose and they get in that large bid, now you're playing extra games and you run into somebody who's got a little bit of wheels, who can move around a little bit. Is Georgia susceptible to going out early? That's something to keep an eye on.
Well, I'm trying to run through my head right now. I'll pull up the top 25, but who is like Dylan Gabriel could give them problems, right?
Yeah,
as a mobile guy.
Not a hyper athlete, but yeah.
No, and Aller can move a little bit, but you're not terrified. Same with like Ohio State, Miami, Cam Ward. We believe it when I see it kind of deal.
Right.
Nico looks a little lost. Nussmeier at LSU is not moving around. Cade Klubnik's not moving around. Iowa State and BYU at that point, like, we're getting into teams that Georgia should kill, right? And so, because you're not seeing Milroe again. We'll talk about that here in a second, but it sure feel like that Bama teams going to the playoff. And so this season could break correctly so that they don't really have to see another one of those. They get the weakness exploited, and that part, dude, it's impossible to play against some of these mobile quarterbacks in college football. It's really, truly hard. But yeah, I thought that, the disrespect to Georgia, it was like, for 3 years we've been making fun of Kirby about making storylines up, and then you idiots actually gave him one, and we saw exactly what happened. He's pretty good at that. My upset of the week, like, this one was the huge one. I guess we can go Michigan State taking down Iowa at home. That was impressive, but again, that was a home dog against a team that can't really score the football, and so we're both kicking ourselves for not taking that one. And then TCU takes down Utah, but that Utah team looks just disgusting and dead. I mean, we'll talk about maybe a change in offensive coordinator, or a definite change in offensive coordinator we'll get into here in a minute, but it wasn't great as far as upsets go, and you and I aren't counting Tennessee over Bama as one of those.
Right. So let's get into that now. This is honestly what motivated me to call myself the donkey, because I was so excited for this, and I thought we were going to see just a great classic college football game, and I was let down. And maybe from my own accord. I mean, I don't think these teams are very good. I mean, I think they're good, but the offense for Tennessee is a complete nightmare right now. Like, if you can't move the ball in this Alabama defense, you can't be taken seriously, and they could not. It was gross. 0 first half points. Like, come on. This is a disgrace. And then on the flip side, Alabama, sloppy. Offense looks bad. It just awful. And Tyson, we're 3 weeks removed from crowning Kalen DeBoer as the best head coach in college football because he took down Kirby Smart. And, we don't like to overreact here. And, I know we were kind of pushing back a little bit on that, but we're like, no, he's definitely up there if he's not number one. I think we all have like a tier. I don't think anybody's like, sometimes people have to do it for their job, but I don't think anybody's like, no, this is the best coach and nobody else is coming second, right? Like, or everybody else is coming second. But we're like, yeah, he's definitely up there. This is a red flag to me. And I was watching that, and I'm like, sure, it could get better. They're recruiting, and he's going to get his own guys. And a lot of these, it's surprising there was a lot of the saving holdovers, but holy smokes, the defense is lifeless. They didn't look physical. I mean, this did not look like an Alabama team that we're accustomed to.
Well, I got a tier, and it's Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning, and you never want to hear it. So whatever. How
about James Franklin?
Who might deserve to be in here is Mr. Hypo. This is Tennessee, like, it's crazy. Nico is missing throws. He's late. He's off on a ton of things, and this offense is still like, there's just something that you can tell they're putting stress on the defense. But I can't give Venables the donkey of the day and bring up like the open tryout thing that he had a year ago and all that stuff. And then not get on Kalen DeBoer for getting back to the fundamentals, which includes tucking in your jersey, being a good teammate. This is Wyom's like 5th grade Pop Warner stuff. Like I understand setting the message and setting the culture. You walked into a ready-made machine and they look lost. They don't look like winners, and that's not something we're accustomed to with Kalen DeBoer. He's, he didn't say it, but the same thing that Sig says applies. Google him. Like, this dude wins football games everywhere he's been. It looks horrible right now at Alabama for Alabama standards. Now, if this was a Washington team, then maybe it's a little different, and he's still going to figure out kind of how to scheme things. The Jalen Milroe NFL first-round draft pick dream died and burned and crashed over the last couple of weeks, and that's been tough to watch. But this was a team that felt like a lock to make the college football playoff after they beat Georgia, and now it feels like there isn't a snowball's chance in hell that this team will be one of the 12 left.
If they lose one more, they're done. Not even the committee can put that in. Not even they can fake that with how good some of the G5 teams look. You can't put a 9-3 Alabama team in with the loss of Vandy. I'm sorry.
Dude, the Army might run for 450 yards in these guys.
They might throw for 400 too. Jeez. But Tyson, we've been a little bit negative the last couple. Let's get in some positive. And BYU, the magic continues for BYU, man. This is a team that's really confused us all year. We took their win total under, and it hit in the first 6 weeks. Or we lost in the first 6 weeks. It was under 5.5. They went 6-0. We're like, wrong. They went another magical one at home against Oklahoma State. Now, the only reason I can smile about this one is because I took the points with Oklahoma State. So that could have been a disaster if Tyson and I talked ourselves into, no, this is the one that Gundy performs, because that would have been brutal as they score one with 30 seconds left. I'm pulling it up right now. I mean, just an insane run for them. Tyson, about a minute left was when they scored, actually. I'm having a hard time with this. Are they legit? Is this like a team that can actually compete? Like, their offense is insane. Like, they move the ball on everybody. And I know it's the Big 12. And I'm not sold on this defense, but they turn people over and just my brain's in a pretzel.
Oh, dude, the ball is bouncing their way. And you can look at their schedule, and, they've only played 2 teams really this season. They beat SMU. Early in the year, it's a different SMU team right now, but part of the reason that we thought SMU might actually stink compared to the preseason expectations was because they lost to BYU. And now it turns out that's a pretty quality loss as far as those things go. And then they house Kansas State at home. And it was a weird game, like a craziest punt return I've ever seen in college football. And BYU just is able to snowball on people in like a almost 2022 Buffalo Bills kind of way, where it was just like, oh, nobody's safe, and granted, if Oklahoma State just doesn't arm tackle on the entirety of that last BYU drive, they probably get this thing done. But those are the games that teams in BYU's position year over year lose in college football, where the magic runs out. You're at home. The entire country is watching you. It's you're the Friday night cap, I believe, is when that game was. And they pull it out at the end it was like Michael Crabtree at Texas Tech or something, the way they won that football game. It was just, we're not being denied. We're winning today. Shout out to BYU. The rest of their schedule, Brad, we'll talk about that UCF game. I think that is certainly the hardest one they have left. They go to Utah for whatever it's called, the Utah Cup or something.
Something like that. Kansas,
Arizona State, Houston. So we're getting close to maybe having to talk a little bit about what do we do about a 10-11 win BYU team.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Tyson, we got to shout out Jake Retzlaff, the first Jewish person to play quarterback at BYU. And I got to shout him out. I mean, this is just a hilarious nickname. He's coined the term and trademarked it. He's going for it, BYU. That's his nickname. So it's just hilarious. But, I mean, this guy, from California, really unheralded recruit, went to Community College of Golden West, then to Riverside, and then transferred to BYU. He is stirring this drink for BYU, man. Like, this offense is sick. He's a good quarterback. And, I think it's funny that the nickname thing is hilarious, but what's not is when you play him, because it's hard to defend. Like, he is slinging this thing, and BYU looks athletic, like legit athletic enough to compete for a Big 12 championship, which is not something we thought coming into the season.
Dude, that defense is like fast, sideline to sideline. It's crazy.
Another team that is surprising. How about Indiana just destroying Nebraska? And this is a big thing because, a lot of people and we've been on this because we like Kirk Cignetti, and my brother is an alumnus of Indiana, so we kind of have we're a little partial to Indiana, or at least we pay attention to them a little bit more than the national media, and the James Madison thing that we watched a bunch of football,
which is to say we pay attention to them at all.
Right, because the national media now, Tyson, for the last couple of weeks, well, I don't know, they're like coming up with ways to keep Indiana out of this. I'm like, guys, if Indiana goes 11-2, they're going to be in, or I guess it'd be 10-2. They're probably going to be in. If they go 11-1, they're certainly going to be in. This was the time when people are like, well, this is their first test. We'll see how they do. And a lot of the sharps, you got to take Nebraska here. Take them plus the touchdown. Well, they got their ass kicked. I mean, it wasn't even close. Indiana looks good. Kirk Cignetti has a different mentality here. It is great to see in Bloomington.
Bro, they're averaging 48.7 points a game. Like this is James Madison on steroids. Like he didn't even do this in the FCS. They're allowing under 14 points a game. I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but they went 31-7, 77-3, 42-30. They haven't played close. The closest game they played was the aforementioned Maryland Mike Locksley squad. The end of the schedule here is going to get harder for sure, starting with the Washington game this weekend, and then at Michigan State, who we just saw take down a team that's at least average or above average, right? So it could be tough. And then Michigan, but then that Ohio State game. There's a chance we're circling an Ohio State game, and Indiana's the undefeated one going into that thing.
Yeah, dude, seriously. The problem is Curtis Rourke broke his thumb or got surgery on his thumb. So it's going to be Taven Jackson starting this weekend against Washington that's coming off a bye. That's scary. Scary hours there. Can Rourke be back for Michigan State? Not sure. I don't know what the drop-off is going to be, but Rourke's been excellent, especially on third down for the Hoosiers. So that's something to keep an eye on. But Jackson goes 7 of 8, 91, 2 tuds in his replacement. Holy smokes. And Justice Ellison, man, 9 carries, 105, 2 tuds. Tyson Lawton, I mean, dude, they're deep in the backfield. It's good to see. So shout out Cignetti, shout out Indiana, shout out Nick. He was mad, Tyson, because when we took Indiana over on their win total this year, he was waiting for the shout out, and I didn't give it to him. So I'm shouting them out now. Now they went over the win total.
He doesn't care now. He's already over the win total. He's kicked back, feet up. He's sitting in Vegas somewhere sipping a drink.
Now he's pissed that they're not top 10.
Well, I would be too. Before the show, we're talking about the playoff odds, and it's like, why is Indiana farther away from this thing than everybody? I mean, what do we do? Them on a neutral, the most fun game in the country would be them versus Ole Miss, but I'm not afraid of Indiana playing anybody in the country right now. They probably lose a game to Georgia. So does everybody else. Right. Let them in the contest.
Them versus BYU, or not BYU. Well, them versus BYU would be awesome. Them versus Boise State.
That would be fantastic. Iowa State. We got a ton of these. That could be really fun.
All right, let's close it out here, Tyson, because we already had some early coaching carousel. How about this, folks? We're just freaking halfway through the season, and teams are moving on because that's how it is. This is the business. So a couple ones here that I wanted to highlight that are coaching. One is Will Hall at Southern Miss. So he got fired, was 14-30. This got embarrassed. This thing was not picking up here for Will Hall, and you had Frank Gore Jr. and it was fun and all that stuff. It's not quite what we were looking for. So they're going to be searching for a head coach. And then how about this? East Carolina. My parents graduated from there. They move on from Mike Houston. Just 2 or 3 losses you couldn't afford to have, really. I mean, the Charlotte one was embarrassing. You lost to App State when you were leading. You lost to Liberty when you're up at half. And it was time to move on. So super interesting to see what they do there. Is anything kind of touching the radar or on your radar with those moves?
I mean, those are interesting. The East Carolina thing is it feels almost NFL-esque in start 2-0 and then get blown out, 2 times in a row here. They're sitting at 3-4, and it's like, we got to get somebody else in here. But it was time. And I think those are interesting. But there's a lot of other coaches are on the hot seat right now. We already talked about what's going to happen with Mac Brown at North Carolina as far as who his successor is going to be. Dave Aranda's got to be out of there at Baylor. Is Sam Pittman on the hot seat? Is he freeze like some of these bigger programs here? Dude, Auburn fires people for literally anything. It's pretty insane. But
I know, but their recruiting class next year is sick, and that's what they want to do.
the recruiting class is always sick. I mean, that's a Lane Kiffin job if I've ever seen one. This is it's getting to the time of the year that we're going to start seeing some heads roll. And look, good for the G5. Good for these guys for getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if you're going to go hire a coordinator from one of these guys and say, hey, take over this program. No, I agree. The two that are going to be the most impactful from a Power 5 or Power 4 standpoint, is Oklahoma has pulled the plug on offensive coordinator Seth Littrell after 7 games in his first year of his tenure there. So he gone on that one. And, Jeff Lebby was there before. He took over at Mississippi State, kind of threw Littrell in there as a promotion. He was an analyst. So it felt like he was going to be in over his head, but you want to talk about cutthroat? Oh, yeah, you're the problem, not the freaking 5 receivers we have out, or the fact that we got rid of our super senior quarterback and turned it over to a freshman. Are you kidding me?
And like that, whatever. I mean, Littrell can also go hang out at the same bar as Brian Ferentz. It's like he wasn't very good at his job.
That's true. And Utah, this one's an interesting. Andy Ludwig steps down, offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. This is curious to me. I think there's a little bit more going on here, Tyson. I think Kyle Whittingham is closer than he's ever been to stepping down or retiring, turning things over to Morgan Scalley, who's already named as the predecessor, or I'm sorry, as the guy who takes over. I'm a little lost for word there, but I'm wondering on the Ludwig side of things if this has anything to do with the Cam Rising situation.
Probably
the past few years. Like, is he frustrated? He's like, dude, we got to move on. And Whittingham wouldn't do it. And now that Rising's out for the year and it's Logan Wilson, shout out Zach Wilson, his younger brother. Is he like, I'm done. I'm gonna go do something else?
Well, it's like you're hamstrung, right? In that you never know who's actually playing week to week. And I loved Cam Rising 2 years ago. I'm personally getting a little sick of this is just crazy at this point. He's going to get another medical red shirt. He might play again next year, but you're hamstrung with who you think is going to play week to week. You're hamstrung with even being able to bring in recruits because you can't pitch playing time when you have a 35-year-old used car salesman playing quarterback for you. It's just ridiculous. You got to go with Wilson. You should have gone with Wilson earlier in the season, just made the call after Rising's first injury there. But this is, It should have been Whittingham's last year. I still think there's a pretty good chance that it is, but this is not the way he wanted to go out. And I'm wondering if maybe inside of that athletic facility, if it's a little bit contested right now.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. And heir apparent was what I was, I guess, trying to think of, for lack of a better term. But yeah, it's kind of messy. And this isn't a Utah team or an organization, for lack of a better term, there that has been messy. The program, it's been buttoned up under Whittingham. Like, you don't hear a lot of this. And it's interesting that's the Rising thing and the injuries that it feels like there is a real fracture.
There's no doubt. I mean, dude, they look dead. They can't handle TCU at all. They scored 7 points.
Yeah, and that's a bad TCU defense too. My goodness. All right, Tyson, that's enough looking in the rear view. Let's look ahead as we highlight some of the best games of the upcoming weekend.
Playbook preview.
How about Friday night? The banger of all bangers. Number 17 Boise State goes to UNLV in what feels like a loser leaves town match when it comes to college football playoff, right? Like, this is huge for us because we have Ashton Jeanty Heisman. I think you got to win this game or else he's cut, and we're cut. And we got to go home, and then we got to watch Cam Ward win the Heisman Trophy, and we're going to be pissed about it because we should have 3 losses. Whatever the case may be, this feels like you got to go all in if you're Boise State. UNLV is coming off the road game against Oregon State that was kind of sleepy and interesting and weird. And Boise State has a chance to roll into Vegas and smash them on Friday night. What's your thoughts on this game?
This UNLV is a sneaky good rush defense. They're like, it's 111 yards a game right now, right around there. And they look fine against Oregon. Oregon State's not going to test you the same way that a Boise State is. There's like 140, I think, to Oregon State, but they can't throw the ball. And so it's a little bit of a different thing. Boise State can stress you in a different way, but I absolutely agree. I mean, we took Jeanty. I think you got him during the Oregon game, maybe right.
I did, yeah.
I got him the next morning for Heisman, so we're a little biased here, but Also, for the rest of this season, this is one I want to see Boise State take home, because I don't think UNLV has a shot against some of these big boys here if they make the 12-team playoff. We saw Boise State play with Oregon. Granted, it was beginning of the year Oregon, and they look like a completely different team right now than they did weeks 1, 2, and 3, really. But this is going to be a fun physical football game, so buckle up, because you get to watch the best player in college football probably go off, and then B, the Saluka thing took so much away from this UNLV football team actually being good that I think people kind of forgot they had a number by their name already this season, and they only have one loss. If they win this game, they're back in the top 25 with a shot at the playoff.
Yeah, and you point out the really good rush defense for UNLV. So it's going to be tested. Number 1 EPA per rush for Boise State, number 20 in the country for UNLV. So that's something to keep an eye on, because all we've heard that the haters, but Genty and Boise State haven't played anybody. Okay, well, if you rip these guys up like you ripped up Oregon,
let's
go, baby.
80 rushing yards for Aston Genty in the first quarter.
Under.
Over.
Okay, I like that. How about this one? Number 12 Notre Dame facing number 24 Navy. Let's go, Sea Troops. Now, Tyson, I got a bone to pick with this one, though. Are you kidding me? You're not going to put number 24 ranked Navy at home with an opportunity to frickin' go to the college football playoff? You got to send them to shitty MetLife and that shitty turf? Are you kidding? That pisses me off, actually. This should be a great game in Annapolis, Maryland. We should have all the guys coming in. You got the boaters coming over. Now it's a little cold over there in Maryland, but that should be the environment, not some slap parking lot with MetLife where you got Notre Dame coming in from the Midwest and you got these guys traveling. It's BS. It's ridiculous.
No, it's crap. It's total crap. But that wouldn't be college football if Notre Dame didn't get all the advantages. And if you've been paying attention, they're telling us very clearly right now, college football is that, hey, we want the moneymakers in our conferences to keep winning football games. So keep your eyes out for some crap from the officials maybe in this one. But Navy just had their best game of the season, I thought, against Charlotte. I know they beat up on Air Force and they beat up on UAB and they beat Memphis, and that was a good game. But that was 100 total points, I think, in that one. And this was a complete performance against the Charlotte team that might be a little bit underrated as far as things go, the way that they're conceived maybe. It's a different animal. Notre Dame's bigger. They're faster. They're stronger. They're going to be more athletic. Navy brings some very unique things to the table, obviously, that are just tough to deal with. But this is a Notre Dame team that, I know that I keep pounding on it, but they lost to Northern Illinois because Northern Illinois showed up and ran the football down their throats.
That's what's interesting, Tyson, because I'm looking at these metrics, and you guys know I like to look at EPA. It kind of simplifies things, or at least gives us a window. Navy's offense is 17th in EPA per rush. Notre Dame's defense now is 6th. Navy's been able to throw the rock around a little bit. They're 5th in EPA per dropback, which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, they throw it, it's explosive.
There's 9 guys in the box.
Right. Notre Dame is 1st in EPA per dropback on defense. So this is easily the best team, or the best defense, excuse me. Well, best team for sure that Navy's faced, and definitely the best defense. Now, here's my thing. Notre Dame, Tyson, I think they found their identity on offense, and it's, getting Riley Leonard out of the pocket, being mobile with his legs, and then just let's pound the rock. Let's be physical. Let's use our big NFL bodies, and let's pound teams. They're 5th now in EPA per rush, going up against the Navy defense, where that's been their weakness. They're 69th. And then Notre Dame's offense, 53rd in EPA per dropback, Navy 41st. So something to keep in mind here. This could be a ground and pound game, and we see a less explosive game that we've seen in the past.
It could be, or it could just be a stark reminder of the difference in levels between college football programs. I hope it's not. I want Navy to win this football game.
Illinois at Oregon. Illinois coming off a huge win at home over Michigan. I was a little turned off by storming the field. I'm not going to lie to you there. I didn't, because it was like, I get it's Michigan, it's a big name, and you guys are Illinois, you haven't had a big one, but come on, you were two ranking points off of them. It was like a field goal game. Come on, guys, But this would be an opportunity if it was at home to storm the field, because they're playing number 1 team in the country, Oregon, coming off a big win against Purdue. A lot of people thought that would be a sleepy spot for them. They came out, looked great on both offense and defense, shut out Purdue, put up 50 basically against the same Illinois team. Where's your head at here? Is this kind of what we talked about with Notre Dame Navy? You think it's a little bit of outclassed action here, or do you think Illinois has a shot?
It's a shot is relative, I think, as far as like winning the football game, going into Autzen and beating this Oregon team is a tall task. And like Ohio State couldn't do it, so I'm less inclined to believe that Illinois could. But Illinois is still being disrespected, I think, nationally a little bit. Like 20 next to their name just looks a little funny to me after the way that they played this season, because you know damn well if Nebraska had that same resume, they're sitting there at 15 or something like that. But this is an Illinois defense that, like, speaking of Nebraska, at some point in that third and fourth quarter, they figured out, hey, we can run stunts on the defensive line, and they've kind of been able to wreak some havoc doing that as the season's progressed. The offense is okay and leaves a little bit to be desired, but I think that they're live in the sense that, like, they can beat just about anybody if the other team doesn't have their game. We've seen Oregon show up off their game to start. It was a pretty awesome performance from them. They almost got backdoored on the spread by Purdue, but they ended up winning 35-0. I mean, it was a blowout from start to finish. It was a team that didn't play with their food. They came out and they won the game. They won the game in convincing fashion. And I think, that was a bit of a message to everybody in the country saying, hey, we believe that we're the best team in the country. These dudes don't belong on the same field as us. And I think that has a higher likelihood of happening than the inverse.
Yeah, and Tyson, I'm just looking, how can Illinois, what's their pathway to victory? And I don't think there is one, really. It's
special teams, maybe.
Maybe, right? Because Illinois' offense, the best part about them, it's not their running game this year. It's the ability to throw the rock. Yeah, and they're 25th in e-paper dropback. Oregon's 7th. Like, they got a really good secondary. They can get after the quarterback a little bit. That's something. And then if you do want to decide to run the ball, because Bielema will, they're 69th in e-paper rush. Oregon's good at stuffing it. They're 12th. I mean, just shows how good Genty was in that game. My goodness. But maybe they can get some cracks. I don't know. But, defensively, Tyson, Oregon 3rd in EPA per rush, Illinois 95th in defending it on the EPA basis. And then dropback-wise, 12th in throwing it, 25th in defending it for Illinois. This to me feels like it's going to be one of those games. Oregon doesn't have to do a whole lot. They're going to run the football. They're going to be able to get a few stops, and then they come out on top.
Yeah, and they might win by 10, and everyone's going to say they stink next week.
Right. I can definitely see that. Let's move over to the SEC, Missouri, Alabama. Not as much of an allure here, but it's still a big matchup because, Alabama loses, they're eliminated. I think if Missouri loses, they're eliminated. They have not looked good. So this is kind of this is certainly, in my opinion, a loser leaves town match. And I just don't know what I'm getting from either side here. Like, do you have like a feel on this one? Or are you just like, we'll see?
No, I have no idea what to expect from either of these quarterbacks, either of these running games, either of these stud wide receivers. I don't know what we're getting out of Drinkowitz or DeBoer. These are like my two guys coming into the season. And now I'm sitting there kind of side-eyeing a little bit, being like, I was an idiot earlier. I don't know what I was thinking. Missouri is certainly out with a loss here. Same goes for Alabama. This spread at 13.5 feels a lot like we're thinking of Nick Saban, Alabama, and just like what they do after losses. But Missouri needed a freaking damn near miracle to get a dub last week against a team that hasn't been very good, and they were struggling the entire way through. They end up getting out. Brady Cook is out, and then he's back in. He's running around like a wild man. He looked a little different after he came in. I don't know what was in that lidocaine, but he looked good coming out of the tunnel. This is huge, not for the playoff implications, but for kind of what we think about both of these programs going forward. Mizzou has a chance to be like, hey, last year was real, and we just started poorly. We're going to go on the road here to Tuscaloosa and win, and Bama can quiet some of the noise right now. Yeah,
that's a good point. That is a big number, Tyson. I got to say, but Missouri has not done anything to write home about. Like, is this maybe what, where – but we've been saying that, like, they're supposed to be Texas A&M when they exploded and came out and shot – and pull off big upset. Now against Bama, maybe on offense that happens, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into this a little bit more for a pick show because I will be having a play in this. I guarantee it. I can just feel it. Let's close with this. Your team, number 8 LSU. How about that? Top 10, Brian Kelly. Shout out, my boy. Now Texas A&M on the other side is also looking pretty good. Our other guy, Mike Elko, has got this team rolling. This offense, Connor Wigman. We were kind of making fun of him a little bit. He's starting to figure it out. I gotta say though. This LSU defense, we were texting when Harold Perkins went out. They're better. The defense is better without him. I don't know how that makes sense, but they just are. It's strange.
I mean, what Weeks is just wearing the same jersey number Harold Perkins was as a freshman. There's something special in that 40. I mean, this dude is going to
Yes.
have 300 tackles by the end of the season. He's been their best defensive player by a mile, and he's playing himself into, top defensive player in the SEC consideration right now with the way that he's played the last couple of weeks. This is a really fun rivalry in the sense that, like, it's gets people fired up and things, but Brad, something to note here is LSU played like a rivalry that actually matters to them a week ago against Arkansas, and that was an emotional game. That's a bigger one, I think, to the program than this A&M game is. And I know the number next to Texas A&M makes you think I'm crazy, but that's kind of how these things work. Hey, man, we want that trophy. We want to bring home the boot. This is a big deal. The home team has won, I think, the last 7 of these matchups. Texas A&M looks like a different unit under Mike Elko than they did at the beginning of the year. And this guy sucks, and I can't believe Texas A&M didn't go out and get insert random coach. Like, it didn't matter. Elko was the call. He was the guy. They made the right decision, and they're reaping the benefits right now. This might be a loser. This is a loser leaves town match for the playoff because neither one of these teams have enough goodwill built up. I don't think personally, because if LSU loses this game and then goes on the road and beats a 2 or 3 loss Alabama team, is that really boosting the resume up enough? And the same thing with Texas A&M, where yes, they beat Missouri. Look at how they looked against Notre Dame earlier in the season, and do we believe in them? So I think this one's huge. I am very excited. LSU's offense has started pretty slowly for the last couple of weeks, and they were very lucky to win the Ole Miss game. Is this one where they come out and they're fired up and ready to roll? I think LSU is the better team in this, but again, it's this series at College Station, a pretty tough place to play. This has all the makings of an SEC banger.
Yeah, this is. I'm excited for this game, and I'm an honorary LSU fan, especially now that Brian Kelly's there. But I've just known you for so long. I've tended to root for LSU. I'm kind of agreeing with you. I think if LSU loses, they're probably out because USC looks awful. And I know it was at the first game of the season, but 2 losses there. Like you said, Bama doesn't look quite as good. They can't get to the SEC championship. It feels like some of the shine's coming off the SEC a little bit. I don't know if I agree with that on A&M yet. Now, they would have 1 loss in the SEC. So technically, there would still be a pathway, I believe, right? Because they don't have the conferences anymore. Or the divisions?
Yes, I guess. Yeah, I'm factoring in, like the Georgia of it all at the end of this thing, like who you're probably going to have to see.
Because if they'll lose 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we could potentially be talking about a no-loss SEC Texas A&M team playing against Texas to end the year. And if that's the case, then A&M, has a really good shot of getting in here. It's a media machine, man, and A&M has got a ton of money, but they've been slept on pretty consistently, it feels like, by the Mickey Mouse ears, Disney and them.
Yeah, it is strange. It really is. Now, I'll throw these out and we'll get out of here. But, LSU's offense, 26 EPA per rush, actually have a running game now. Texas A&M is good at stopping it. They're 11th. LSU can throw it. They're 9th EPA per dropback. Texas A&M can defend it. They're 23rd in EPA per dropback. On the flip side, LSU's defense, we were making fun of it. A lot of people were. They're 30th in EPA per rush going up against a unit on Texas A&M's offense. It's 24th. LSU's defense 33rd in EPA per dropback. A&M's offense 16th, and that's with Wigman back looking pretty good. Is he going to transform into his old self? That's what you got to worry about here, I think, if you're A&M. But looks like it's an even matchup on paper, man. This will be a banger. I agree with you. All right, Tyson, that's going to do it for us today. Where can they find any of the bets we're placing? Because we got freaking games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday before NFL. Where can they find our stuff?
It's in the Discord app. That link is in the bio here, or link is in the description. Group name, as I said what I said. Brad mentioned it. Tons of different channels. College football is going on right now as we speak. We got 2 games. We got 2 more games tomorrow, 2 more games on Thursday, and then the Friday night home dogs. Everybody knows the story by now. Friday nights tonight, you need to be in front of your TV. If you want to go golfing on Saturday, make sure you're watching on Friday because I'm guaranteed crazy is going to go down. And not only college football, we got the NFL in there. The NBA started tonight officially. The Celtics bodied the Knicks as we were recording this, and then the Lakers and T-Wolves is set to tip off like right now. So that's happening, and the NHL is rolling. Soccer, whatever you can think of, we're playing. And Brad, the World Series is here.
Yep.
Your boys, the New York Yankees.
the old stomping grounds. Yeah, it should be a good one though. Judge Otani, I think that's what everybody wanted. I know some people are like, oh, it's these top spenders. How about you tell your billionaire owners to open up their checkbooks? How about
Give me
that?
a
How
pick
about
right
MLB? I think the Yankees are going to win.
I think
Dodgers don't have enough pitching.
I think Yankees as well, but I want Shohei to cap the season off. But we'll put, RBI picks and random parlays and things like that will be in the Discord. So go ahead and click that link. It's right on the bottom of the screen there for you too.
Like, subscribe, and share the show on the way out. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that thing if you haven't already. If you're listening to podcast form, 5-star review helps us climb the charts, all the stuff, helps us become more discoverable. You can stay connected with us as well if you want to follow us on socials, whatever the case may be, and share the show with a friend, share it with somebody you hate. It does not matter to us. We just appreciate the support you guys have. If you're a longtime listener, if you're a new listener, welcome in. We'll have you covered throughout the rest of the football season. And as we get ready for a lot of the sports that Tyson just mentioned that's in our Discord, we'll be covering the majority of it, especially on the hard court. So we'll get you tuned for that. We'll be back later in the week talking and giving out our best bets in college football and in the NFL. So we'll talk to you guys then. Peace.